everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Purple Ponderings with Pankaj. Today on our show, we have Pete Frey from Nationwide, who's given us his time to share some of his insights and backgrounds on this interesting topic of emerging technologies and opportunities within insurance. So, without much further ado, Pete, why don't you share a little bit about your background and your role at Nationwide, and also a little bit of a tidbit about you, which most people in the public world may not know of.
Sure. Good. Well, thanks for having me, Pankaj. It's a pleasure. I was looking forward to spending some time with you today and talking a little shop. So thank you for having me. Um, Pankaj mentioned my name is Pete Frey. I work for Nationwide. I am the Commercial Telematics and Connected Business Director there. So what that means basically is as we look to build capabilities around IoT technology, around telematics, anything related to connected sensors, and that type of cutting edge technology that resides in my area. And I work with the rest of our commercial lines partners across our commercial ag section, across the organization with marketing, legal, you name it. We work together and we collaborate to bring these solutions to life in hopes that we're able to offer special services, discounts, protection for our customers. So really fun job. It's exciting, challenging, and definitely never boring. I've been there just over 2 years. And before that, I worked for a couple of different startup companies on the vendor side, all dealing with telematics. And before that, I was with American Family Insurance for 15 years. So have had a fun career, mostly involved in technology. And over the last probably 10 to 12 years, it's been revolving around telematics and IoT. So the one tidbit people might not know about me is that touching on the in-between American Family and Nationwide, I was on the vendor side with the two telematics startups. I worked with two different ones. One was focused on UBI telematics solutions for insurance carriers. The other more for fleet telematics systems and solutions. And that whole side of me was about 5 years worth of some of the most incredible learning I ever experienced. So being able to go from the corporate side to the startup vendor world and back has been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. And one of the things we've spoken about the last few times we chatted, that experience, right, where you've gone from a carrier to a startup to back to a carrier in the innovation space, is got to be a very powerful experience and capability to bring to the table, because usually you do see sort of someone's been in the carrier role for a while.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that they can obviously do this job as well, but like that holistic view of what does it take to truly innovate and get something off the ground which is impactful for all the stakeholders is it's a tough job, right? And having that startup experience is critical, at least how I saw it. So maybe if you can speak about that a little bit more for some of our viewers, right, who are
sure.
also in the innovation teams and maybe lacking that sort of, what exactly did that startup experience bring that you're able to leverage in your day-to-day job?
Sure. You know, there was, I remember a long time ago, there was a small leadership book, and I can't remember exactly the title or who wrote it, but it left an impression on me. It was, Walk in My Shoes. And the book had two different perspectives. The first half of the book was from an employee's perspective, trying to speak to their leader, saying, look at what I'm experiencing, look at what I'm feeling, look at what I'm thinking, look at the challenges that I'm having to deal with. And then the second half of the book was from the leader's perspective, and same kind of thing. And the whole objective was get the complete picture from two perspectives to understand exactly what goes on. And the reason I bring that up is because it feels like I was able to get exactly that type of experience when I worked with the startups and back with the carrier, because I think it's so important. The one thing that I realized is until you're sitting in that or taking the time to understand the challenges, the objectives, the pace, it's hard to really collaborate on an equal basis. And in this space, I will be the first to tell you that as an insurance carrier today, to do what I do, I can't do this without my partners, my technology partners, my vendor partners, and I use the word partner very deliberately. And so I think I have an accountability to respect them as an equal partner in achieving what we need to achieve. And understanding their goals and their challenges and what they deal with is so vital for me to be able to build my roadmaps and my plans. By the same token, being on the vendor side, I think it's so critical to understand the challenges of a big company or even a small company, but the corporate challenges, the processes that are in place, the customer issues that I'm dealing with. That's critical. Again, if you want to have this wonderful partnership, I think you have to understand each other to that degree. So being able to bring that perspective, I think, has really helped me and gives me newfound respect for both sides on what they have to deal with. And so it really changes from, back in the days, it was like, well, I'm the carrier, you're my vendor, you do what I say. It does not work that way, and it can't work that way in this space. The pace is too fast. Things are changing too quickly. If I don't have partners that can help me achieve our goals, it's just not going to work. So I think understanding that perspective from both sides of the table is so critical.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Excellent. So that's a good segue, by the way, into talking a little bit more about the broader sort of technology at play, right? So new technologies are always coming out, right? And
Yeah.
you've been in the UBI space and telematics, so you've seen sort of the IoT technologies that have been coming out, devices, connectedness. Of course, and I know you have some programs on the commercial side with fleets
Mm-hmm.
already, right? So there's some use cases which I think are very, very popular, but then there's a whole lot of I my perspective, there's a whole lot of opportunity still waiting, right? We're just scratching the tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg. So just what is your perspective on sort of the opportunity available and sort of the technology being used as a leverage?
You hit it right on the head. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think with the technology, I think we're still trying to understand what it can do, what the possibilities are, and how to align it with insurance capabilities. So I mean, telematics, it's that's been going on for a little while, and companies I think are still trying to understand the power of telematics. And starting there, I will say there's two main things that are so important to the success of a project like that or a program like that, and that's understanding your customer and understanding the data. And the reason I bring that up with respect to telematics is because I think the same principle holds through as you start looking at IoT, whether it's property sensors, wearables, security, anything that we consider connected. If you're not looking at how it impacts the customer or the customer's journey, or you're not looking at where and how you want to use that data, then you're merely chasing shiny objects. And in our space, I think you really have to be good at making sure you separate the shiny object from the solution that's going to add true value and impact for your customers, your agents, and the insurance carrier. So, in light of that, I think it's wide open. I mean, in the IoT space, especially, or the connected sensor space, telematics is establishing, it's growing, but now we're talking about wearables. I mentioned that. What wearables and how they can impact things like reducing workman's comp claims, reducing injury, reducing time, productivity, or improving productivity, I should say. And then you take a look at things like sensors, water, heat, temperature, fire, all in guise of protecting businesses. I think those are two strong areas that insurance carriers are starting to discover. All right, there's something here. What do we do with this? there's one thing where you can get involved in, adding a service to a customer, and that's great. Service or customers would love that. But I think to my point about the data, how do you take it to that next level? What do you do with that data? How do you turn that data into opportunities for better pricing, better segmentation, risk prevention, and even more and more innovation in analytics? So I think those areas are strong. The other area that I don't want to overlook is the ag tech space. And being a nationwide, we're big in the agricultural area, commercial agricultural area. IoT tech is really growing there too, in terms of using drones, using sensors to analyze a field, analyze soil, maximize the efficiency of how you harvest your fields, or anything related to that, because more and more on the ag space, that is, efficiency, productivity is so critical. Understanding the weather, understanding when you should plant seeds, when you shouldn't. So I think the ag tech space is one that you're going to see too, if not already, growing huge in the IoT space.
Yeah. Yeah. On that point, I got to tell you, it was pretty pleasantly surprising to me when I got a data point. Maybe you can validate it, that
Hmm.
especially when it comes to agri, the use case within agriculture, farmers, contrary to perceptions, are actually one of the fastest adopters of new technology, right? That was a data point that was given to me. I was, pretty much, mind-boggling for me. And
Right.
that's crucial because you spoke about the end customer and you spoke about data, right? And so having the end customer appreciate and understand the power of what this technology can do for them is critical to the adoption, which in turn leads to better data for the carrier to then make all the decisions that you're talking about, right? So I feel like
Yeah.
there's that flow that's really important. And it's not, I wanted to just echo that aspect from what you said about the agriculture. So, maybe we can, at this point, just wanted to get your thoughts also on some of the
Yeah.
other emerging technologies, right? So, there's a lot of thing about blockchain and augmented reality, and there's AI ML as well, right? And one of the things that I hear from the traditional carriers and the folks in the industry is that is sort of just I don't know if skeptical is the right word, but they've seen a lot of technologies come, and generally insurance is always the the laggard, right, when it comes to trying out and adopting technologies, right?
Right.
Even if you look at the Java or the .NET, I mean, you can look at all those different technology waves that have come and gone, and it's always insurance is always at the behind the curve on that. Whereas at the end of the day, if you see, I always think of insurance as essentially an industry that is all about data, right? It's
Hmm.
risk assessment, risk mitigation, risk management, and all of that is mostly around data. So how is it that we've had this situation for so long? What's your perspective on
You
some of
know, I think in the last few years, it's really changed. I think with the emergence of insurtech, that industry is probably one of the biggest industries right now that's growing, and you're getting a feel for that, with what you're doing. And I think it does revolve around that data. I think people are realizing with the power of things like AI, machine-to-machine learning, that's really changing the way we do things. And so I think the insurance space is really dramatically changed, and you're seeing carriers that are getting more involved in, they've developed venture groups that help incubate and fund startups. More and more, you're seeing that, and you're seeing innovation areas and carriers that are applying and teaching methodologies and innovation that promote test and learn type work. Let's test things early. Let's try it out, and then evolve from there. And I think it's changed before, and I've been in the insurance space for a long a long time. Um, you're exactly right. Projects would take 3-4 years, and that was okay. um, the nature of insurance was always being risk averse, and the same would apply for rolling out new things in technology. That's completely changed now. I think you're seeing more and more globally across the insurance space, where got to test things out, try new things. Might be okay to fail, but just don't fail big. But try it out, see how things are going. But the other thing I think that's changed, Pankaj, is I think insurance more than ever is paying attention to what else is going on around the customer. What trends do you see, not just in insurance,
Yes.
right, but in consumer behavior? We watch more and more. We watch, what is Amazon doing, right? What's Google doing? What you name it. Different areas of the industry, you're starting to see this convergence where we have to change our thinking, and so yeah. Between when I first started in insurance and now, it's night and day difference, and I think that's lent itself to openness to bring in these new technologies, openness to partner, openness to try things and have partnerships that you might have never thought of before. So it's a fun, exciting time. The challenge I think that's there too, though, is as insurance companies, we're learning how to adjust to it. And so it does require a different way of thinking and a different approach. But I'm happy to say that they're evolving.
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree that the couple of things that I've seen that I think have been pushing the traditional incumbents to be a little bit faster to try out these programs is also competition from unknown quarters, right? For
Yeah,
example, in the
yeah,
like the I call it the digital NGA phenomena, right, where you have these insurtechs that have come in initially with a tech play, but then morphed into let's attract customer, right? Just like a acquisition, and then going into becoming a full-fledged carrier, right? So
sure.
Bohem, Lemonade, or Root Cane. I mean,
Yeah.
I can just name so many of them, right? And I feel the numbers, I still get feedback from, hey, if you aggregate the direct return premium, that's still like a little rounding off error. And my point is that it may be a rounding off error, but if you look at the spectrum of time and how big the industry has got to, and then look at how fast they're growing, right? It's like it's not something, and I feel that that's one of the things where people are looking at them and saying, oh, we got to do something because this is coming. The other one that you rightly pointed out, you mentioned Amazon. I don't know if you saw, but Amazon launched car insurance yesterday in India,
Mm,
right?
yeah, heard about that. Yep.
And so this is something which was, I've always been wondering when Amazon and Google will get into something like a consumer insurance, because just look at that connectedness. Like they've got back to our use case within commercial as well as personal property. There's just so many gadgets that are already out there that's collecting all kind of data which these guys own, and they can easily leverage a lot of that data and basically have the best perspective of what is the risk, right? They don't need 30-year-old data to come up with
Yeah.
pricing models. So I just feel that they have the ability to change the game very quickly, and that's where sort of I tell the carriers that, hey, do something quickly, because you never know where the competition is going to come and how fast. So I just wanted to echo that aspect as well, that some of that has also probably started to play into how people or traditional incumbents
I
think.
think I think you're right. I think you're right. And you're seeing some of those companies talk to other companies like us, for instance. Conversations are happening between the Amazons and Nationwides and State Farms and Ford, Toyota, where you're seeing these large companies that realize again that maybe the better way to go here is to collaborate in where everybody wins. Because at the end of the day, too, um, everybody has their core expertise, and it's not so easy. Like Amazon, for instance, becoming an insurance carrier all of a sudden. It's not very easy, and chances are, there's partnerships underneath somewhere that are fueling a lot of that. But stick to the core. Like Nationwide, I think we realize, well, we're not going to manufacture cars. So how do we work with car manufacturers to collaborate in a way that we can give the customer the best service possible and still achieve the goals we want to achieve. And I think that's happening all over the place. I think the customer more than ever is at the center of all these conversations.
I would agree with you, right? Especially when it comes to car insurance, and I think GM or is it Ford, or maybe all of both of them, who have now rolled out the service where if you want to buy a new car, insurance comes with it, right, as part of the car package itself. So it's not something that you have to, the new car buyer has to figure out, which was earlier a problem, right? They had to come with the insurance code if they wanted to buy the car. So I think there's been some rethinking of the core product itself, right? And
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
I have this vision. I gotta where just because I'm so focused on the property, but it's also true for car, where car manufacturers over a period of time have improved the number of like they've added so many features to make the driver safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not stopped the accidents from happening, but certainly the fatalities have kind of gone down, right? And we can look at the data to see how that goes. But more and more features are being added. So, and cars are now being produced that protect the driver. Similarly, can we think of a day where properties are equipped to protect the property owners and
Yep.
property homeowners, right, that live within them? So if we think that with IoT, at least the perspective from our side is that that day will come, right? And then if that day comes, then the whole idea of what is an insurance product becomes different, right?
Yeah.
It's inherent in that whole, call it a service offering, call it a product offering, but the technology takes care of the occupants and the accidents. But in case technology can't, then there's the insurance coverage that kicks
Sure.
in. What are your thoughts on that? So,
I think so, but it's still, Pankaj, it's still at the, when you look at it, it's at the core of what we do. It's about protection, right? And before it was about that policy, and if you had an event or an unfortunate incident, insurance carriers were supposed to be there to provide you that protection afterwards and take care of you and get you back on your feet. The technology now allows us to take that protection even more so, right? Where, because before, well, the event happens, that's when we go into that, that's when we would go into action. Well, isn't it better if we prevent that from ever happening, so that a customer doesn't have to experience something bad? So now I think with the technology that's in place and the data, you're able to take that protection and extend it even before anything happens, to the point of prevention, detection, versus this reactive approach that has always been the nature of a company. And so I think you're seeing this technology being used in so many ways like that, and then the data to understand behaviors, because I think the other thing, along with risk prevention and mitigation, if we can influence behavior, then that's a good thing too. So sure, it's one thing to give telematics devices to customers, and good luck, this should help you make you drive safer or more safely. With the data, how can we use that to influence the behavior to where good driving practices are happening? Whether it's a device on a farm combine which catches fire, if there's a sensor there that'll actually prevent that fire and change the behavior of a farmer to make sure that that combine is cleaned every once in a while to prevent that fire, then we're doing our job. So I think it all gets wrapped into, what does protection really mean? And that's where that's what I think you're seeing. And I think that's in the spirit of what we're trying to do with the technology when we're building capabilities around it. How do we protect those customers in more ways and extraordinary ways that we've never thought of before?
yeah, absolutely. And I think the opportunity is there. As I was sharing with someone the other day, like if I am, as a consumer, a buyer of car insurance, home insurance, I'm a small business owner, I have Bob, and I have workers comp,
Mm-hmm.
I have life insurance. If you look at all of these different products today, on the traditional way is for all the, or maybe the same company, even a nationwide, might be treating me as different customers for all these different products, right? So I'm
Right.
like this guy who's across these different silos, but the opportunity is there where if let's say I'm now one who says that, listen, I embrace technology. I'm open to using IoT and to share my data in exchange for some
Mm-hmm.
incentive, right, to keep me financially safer and healthy as well. But yeah, you want to read data from my wearable, you want data from my property sensors, my car, the wearables for my workers. Now all
Right.
of a sudden it becomes extremely powerful, right, as an opportunity for you to use influence me to be that model customer for the carriers, but
Yeah.
then inspire others to then go and say, hey, listen, Pankaj, there's another person who's exactly like you, but if they embrace technology, here's the benefit, here's the case study on what that benefit to them would be, and right, we can influence that behavior. I think it can go on from there. So
Yeah.
that's sort of how we see it. And I don't know, that's probably what we're sharing as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think and you hit something important there, because this is something, as we study customers um, quite a bit, there's still that unease about data, sharing that data. And so I think for us as a carrier, and even for our partners, we have to be very sensitive to that. And customers, to your point, you mentioned this. A customer is going to be willing to share to a point. At the same time, they want to see what value they're going to get out of that. It is their data. I know there's different trains of thought, and well, who owns that data? And I feel very importantly that it's the customer's data, and if we're doing things right, they'll grant us license to use that data. And so that means we just have to be extremely clear on what we're doing with it, and protect them, even with that data in mind. Again, take that protection mantra, applies to their data, and in how we share it, how we use it. And I think we have to be very clear, in that regard. But I do think, we've seen customers, they'll say that exactly what you just said. I'm willing to share, but, are you just gonna save me some dollars on my premium? Am I gonna get discounts? What am I getting out of it? And I think that's completely fair.
Yeah. And we've been researching this a lot, Pete. What we found when talking to business customers as well as homeowners is that their expectation is, the concern is privacy,
Hmm.
transparency. But and there are ways to address them, right? So it's not that you can't do that, right? You need to
Right.
be more transparent with them. You need to be able to, share exactly what is the data, what is being collected, what is it being used for, and that value exchange, right? Having clarity on what that value exchange looks like. Back to your point, right? If I'm sharing this data, what am I getting in return? And making that extremely clear. Once you cross that bridge, there's overwhelming data and evidence to say that people will buy
Yeah.
in, right? People will embrace. Because here's why: everybody knows that today nobody's even asking them whether you want to share your data, and the data is being collected. Facebook collects
Right.
it all the time, and I mean, I can name everybody's collecting that data, right,
Right.
and using it, and nobody's paying consumer squat. So we think that there's a great opportunity for the consumer to actually have monetize their data in a way that benefits everyone, right? This is a win-win to all
Hmm.
the stakeholders in this ecosystem. So but anyway, this is a pretty passionate topic because we a lot of research on
Yeah.
what do
Yeah,
we
you could have a couple hours on this alone.
absolutely. But yeah, in the interest of time, let's keep moving on. So the last thing on this topic is, we were talking about the adoption of newer technologies within insurance, and why there is a lag, but that could change. You know, Specifically when it comes to IoT, right, in insurance, what do you think is the one thing that could change that would improve the adoption of this technology significantly?
I think the one thing that could change, maybe like culturally or from a customer perspective, is that what you're asking, Pankaj, or what are
Yeah,
you thinking there? You know, I think I think when we find that sweet spot that is going to combine, that it, what works for that customer, there's always this sweet spot. I always kind of refer to it as that spot where it clicks for the customer from an acceptance standpoint. It clicks for the sales channel from an insurance carrier standpoint, agents, direct. It's something that's easy to understand and sell, and it clicks from an operational standpoint with an insurance carrier. So those are kind of the three. To me, those three areas are vital, and it's difficult to get all three aligned in a way that's perfect. But we're getting there as an industry. I think before, if you take some of the early days, again, I'll refer to telematics. Everybody was excited. There's new technology. We're going to collect data, and we put it out there. And a lot of carriers, there's a very few that may have been successful early on. They struggled though because they either weren't putting out the right value proposition from a customer standpoint. So here, we want to put this device in your car and collect all your data. Well, that's not a good message for me as a customer. Like, well, for what? Why do you want my data? Right? So we were missing on the value proposition side for a customer and what really makes a customer tick. We were missing it from a distribution side because we were expecting agents to take this and just go sell it. And it didn't necessarily work that way because it was not easy for them to understand what they were selling. So we had to get the distribution side right. And probably the most challenging thing is the operational side of things. How do you actually build this capability around this technology internally? You're talking about an insurance company, an industry that had not changed in years and years and years and years. Processes from underwriting to servicing, to how things are done.
Right.
Now all of a sudden these technologies come in and you're interacting with a customer on practically a daily basis, where before maybe you talked to them when there was a claim. You are talking about data privacy issues where you've never had to talk about that before. You're faced with legal discussions that you've never had to talk about before. So building an operation around this capability is challenging. And so those three things alone, I think, combined, when carriers are able to find the sweet spot that make those three things align, that will change. That will change the way things are done, and all of a sudden you're going to see this isn't going to be innovation anymore. This is going to be how we do business, right? And I think that's when you'll see the tipping point.
It's a great takeaway, right? So I have this visual in my mind based on your answer that it's three circles, right? You said the sales, the customer, the operations, and then there's this common overlapping, like a Venn diagram, right? And there's
Yeah,
this
yeah,
sweet spot, right? And if you can put a finger to it and identify something which all three agree on, and I think that's what you're talking about, right? Once we get there,
yeah,
then things magic will happen
yeah.
automatically.
Yeah, and I've talked about a lot of that before in terms of capability, and I use capability too quite a bit. You'll probably notice I use that because I think before when carriers have approached this technology, they've talked about it as if they're rolling out a new system, a new software, a new tool, and it is not that. It truly is building a business capability. The technology, it's the enabler.
Correct.
It's the enabler, but you have to have that capability wrapped around that. If you truly want to make this technology change the way you do business and change how your customers change their perspective of you.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Excellent. Super. And so with that, let's go into the second part of this conversation, because I think we can just talk even more and keep going on and on. But in the interest of time, let's get to a section which is more about learning about Pete. So next question about you is, you've had a very interesting professional journey so far. What would you say has been your best accomplishment and sort of your biggest learning so far?
Um, I think the biggest thing, if I had to say, was learning how to be resilient and resourceful in everything I've had to do. I mean, yes, it's been, I've been blessed with being in a field and in an industry that has allowed me to learn and apply technology that is new, try different things. But along the lines, you get a lot of bumps and bruises, and it is a grind. It is absolutely a grind sometimes when you're introducing things like this. And so I think I've had to learn quite a bit how to, just be resilient. If you believe in it, you'll find a way. And so I think that takes a lot of communication, a lot of trust in your team and your colleagues around you. But you become almost an evangelist for these things. And so I've learned that it's rewarding though at the end of it. So when you can sit back and look at some of the accomplishments and see how when people, especially people that have been in the industry for so long, when that light bulb clicks and they say, I get it now. This is great, and customers are embracing it, and agents are embracing it. That's when you've done something good. And so for me, it's definitely been about how to look at things from so many different angles. As I mentioned earlier, it's one thing to just be excited about the technology and what it can do, but it's another to make others embrace it and make it sustainable within your organization. So that's been kind of the biggest learnings for me. And I like I said, bumps and bruises along the way, but with every one of those you learn and you approach it in a different way, um, and it turns into something really, really exciting.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So my next question for you is: I'm sure you're a pretty busy person, but despite all that, you probably also, well read, and you read books and publications. So tell us a little bit about, what do you read? Who do you follow to just keep yourself updated?
Oh, you know what? I don't have necessarily just one thing. I do try to I love attending conferences, and I love to see, every once in a while, good webinars on topics, because there's some really great nuggets, especially when it's folks that are in the industry that are living it and breathing it. Some of my counterparts with other carriers, brilliant folks, and have lived through some of the trials and tribulations. So I like watching and listening to a lot of my counterparts. Um, in the industry, there's some fantastic people out there that are researching and staying on top of the trends. Nationwide is part of the IoT Observatory, which is run by Matteo Carbone. Exciting stuff. He does a great job of bringing different folks together, both in the carrier space as well as the vendor space. So we pay quite a bit of attention to what's going on there. And so it's really just a lot of different places. I can't say that I have one particular favorite. I like seeing different sides and info that comes from different places.
Got it. Well, it's interesting. A quick plug for us because Matteo was our first guest speaker on this podcast. So,
I think I saw that. Yeah,
yeah, he was.
yeah,
So curious. So, are there, you mentioned about, listening to your colleagues in the industry
yeah.
to updated. So, are there, if I were to ask you who should have on this show that you would like to listen to, what are some names that come to your mind?
Um, well, you're talking about from another carrier or just in general?
In general, like,
In
so
general?
you're tuning onto a podcast and there's a guest that you'd want to listen to.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, well, you already mentioned you had Mateo on, so that takes that one. Um, from a telematics journey,
Or maybe in
I
general, like carriers, insurtech. I mean, we could.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Let me think about this one a little bit. Um, There's one partner that we work with that I think has some very interesting perspectives. HSB, Hartford Steam Boiler, in the IoT space. They're doing some neat things and when you see them, present, they do a really good job talking about the space, not just in terms of the technology, but on the impacts on customers and so forth. So I think they would be one that I think they're pretty progressive in their thinking, and they understand the insurance industry really well. So that might be one that I would look for.
All right. Well, we'll reach out to them, see if they want to come on.
Yeah, they would be good. They would be good.
All right, super. So for this very last section, Pete, I have a few. This is a rapid fire round. I'm going to give you two choices.
Uh-oh.
You pick one, and you have to tell us why you picked that one. So this is always the fun part. Let's start with LeBron James or Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Why?
Well, I kind of grew up watching him, for one, but his passion and his drive to compete were pretty much second to none, and his commitment to being on top. Love that.
Got it. Superman or Spider-Man?
That's a good question. Probably Spider-Man. Spider-Man, because he, to me, is a little bit more. I mean, he was actually human, and so it's a little bit of an underdog that rose to the top. So I guess I like that.
Got it. Golf or tennis?
Another choice in just golf or tennis?
What do you play?
I'm not good at either one. But if I had
Neither
to,
am
it'd
I,
be.
but I always say that don't confuse passion with talent.
That's true. That's true. I'd go tennis. How's that? Let's go tennis. And I think tennis because I like being in motion a lot more. I mean, I do like golf, but that frustrates the heck out of me. But at least with tennis, you're pretty much in constant motion when you're out there.
Got it. Baseball or football?
Football.
Goes pretty fast. It came out like a
Yeah,
nanosecond. Why?
that was an easy one. Definitely football. I mean, baseball's fun to watch, but I have a passion for football.
Got it. Iron Man or Captain America?
Oh, that's a good one too. Captain America, I think, but that's very close. Very close. Like Captain America, um, just I don't know what he stood for, how he did things, but I love the ingenuity of Iron Man.
Got it. Got it. Paper books or ebooks?
Oh, that's a great question. I have to say paper books. Something about holding it in my hands and flipping the pages, the smell of the pages. I'm still kind of old school that way.
Got it. And finally, vacation spot, Iceland or Hawaii?
I'm going to go with Iceland. I've never been to either place, but if I had a choice, I would go to Iceland, just because it just seems like such a neat place that again probably has this beauty and mystique that you would never knew existed.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about Hawaii all the time, so to me, Iceland is this fascinating place that would be fun to explore.
Yeah, I've been to Iceland as well. I can tell you, if you're going there, go there in winter because Northern Lights you
Oh,
don't get in summertime.
I bet.
And for us in the Midwest, there's another tidbit which is attractive because I went around Christmas time. It was 20 degrees warmer in Iceland than Chicago.
Really? Hmm.
The
All
story
right.
of Iceland, right? It was misnamed Iceland by the people who got there because they didn't want the rest of the world to go there. So they exchanged the names with Greenland. Greenland is uninhabitable,
Yeah.
and you can't even go there. But they call it Greenland. And Iceland is this beautiful place. It's like
Yeah.
I saw it as better climate than Chicago, and it's called Iceland, right? It's supposed to be, yeah, cold and icy. So,
Yeah. I think that's brilliant.
yeah. So, well, on that note, Pete, we come to an end of this show. It was
Good.
a pleasure. This was a great conversation. Any final thoughts before we close it off?
No, just thank you. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. I appreciate you thinking of me when you invited me on this. It's always fun. As you can tell, I could probably talk about this too for a long time and just sit down and have a good time discussing it. But it's fun to be a part of this, and fun to be a part of this type of space because I think, like you said, it's tip of the iceberg. There's so much going on and so much still to be discovered that it's great being in this position. So I appreciate you and talking to you and your partnership and yeah, we have to do it again sometime.
We'll do. We'll do. We'll come back, especially after this, coronavirus thing kind of goes away. Maybe we could do it in person. So, uh,
Yeah, here's hoping.
all right. On that note, thank you, Pete, once again. And for our listeners, that brings us to an end to this show. And we will be back very soon with another guest on another episode of Purple Ponderings with Pankaj. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.